That truck belonged to Dave Mercer, a quiet, recently laid-off warehouse manager with a daughter to raise and bills piling up. The near miss startled him, and his instinct was to lay on the horn and flash his lights, a small gesture that would snowball into a week of chaos. Kara, not one to be shamed or challenged, flipped him off in the mirror and hit the gas. But Dave didn't let it go. He tailed her for a few blocks, not close enough to hit, but close enough to unsettle. Kara pulled into a Starbucks parking lot, hoping to lose him. To her surprise, he parked right behind her. They exchanged words, loud ones. Witnesses would later describe them as two lunatics screaming about lane changes and death threats. What no one noticed was Alex, a barista and amateur vlogger, filming the whole thing from his car across the lot. The video, uploaded just an hour later under the title entitled "Woman Freaks Out on Chill Dad," went viral. Within 24 hours, Kara was plastered across the internet, her business page flooded with one-star reviews, clients pulling out, and realtors gossiping. But then the tides shifted. A second video surfaced, this one from a different angle, uploaded by a commuter named Vanessa Cruz. Her footage painted a different picture, Dave's truck intentionally veering into Kara's lane earlier, and him tailing her much more aggressively than previously claimed. Public opinion wavered. But the most damning blow was yet to come. As Kara scrolled through hundreds of hateful messages and threats online, she started receiving emails to her business address, disturbing messages that referenced details from her personal life no one should have known. Her high school nickname. Her old street address in Savannah. Even the name of her late dog. The familiarity was chilling. She reached out to her assistant, Jenna, and cancelled all open houses for the weekend. She had a growing sense that this wasn't just about an overreaction at an intersection. Something deeper, more sinister, was unraveling. Meanwhile, Dave posted cryptic statuses on Facebook. Some people never change. The past has a funny way of catching up. His old high school friends commented with vague inside jokes. The tone felt like an inside game. Back at Starbucks, barista Alex found himself becoming an unlikely influencer. The video had reached over 200,000 views by the end of the day. Reporters were emailing him. Strangers were showing up at the coffee shop hoping to spot the now famous barista. He hadn't realized the fight was so much more than a typical angry exchange, until he rewatched his footage and noticed something strange. In the video's background, a man in sunglasses, not Dave, was seen photographing Kara's license plate. He wasn't involved in the shouting match. He appeared, snapped the photo, and walked away. That man had yet to be identified. Alex uploaded a zoomed-in frame to Reddit, asking, "Who is this guy?" The thread exploded with amateur sleuths digging through facial recognition apps and social media. By Friday morning, Kara received a call from a blocked number. "You think you can just erase what you did?" the voice said. "People remember." "I remember." She froze. The voice sounded familiar. From years ago. From a time she buried. And with that call, Kara realized this wasn't about road rage. It was about revenge. A revenge she didn't yet understand, but would soon be forced to confront. And it had only just begun. The morning after the incident at the gas station, the city was drenched in grey drizzle. Everyone seemed agitated, rushing through puddles and traffic jams, oblivious to the undercurrent of something darker swirling beneath their routine. For the five involved, normalcy was already eroding. The woman who had stormed out of her car now sat in a small cafe near the courthouse. Her name wasn't in the news, but the dashcam footage had gone viral. She scrolled through comments, each one a dagger of judgment. Some accused her of faking the whole thing. Others claimed she provoked the entire encounter. "I didn't lie," she whispered to herself, shivering despite the warmth inside. Her phone buzzed again. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A calm male voice, "You need to stop talking. Things are already out of control." "Who is this?" "Just someone trying to keep you alive." The line went dead. She stared at the screen, her pulse thudding. Across town, The man she had confronted in traffic was at the police station, arguing with an officer.
You have the footage. It was self-defense. She came at me with her keys raised.
The officer tapped his pen against a notepad.
And yet, she filed first. We have to look into both claims. This is political, he snapped. She knows people.
The officer raised an eyebrow.
Do you? He didn't answer. Meanwhile, the third figure in this unraveling tale, a bystander who had recorded the incident and uploaded it without a second thought, was now being harassed online. His social media profiles had been hacked.
Fake tweets and photoshopped images spread like wildfire.
The line between his real identity and the digital distortions blurred more with each passing hour.
He paced his apartment, phone in hand, contemplating deleting everything.
But something stopped him. A message on his screen, "Meet me tonight. The truth is bigger than you think." That night, they all received the same address from anonymous sources. A rundown warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. Suspicion warred with curiosity, but in the end, they all came.
The woman was first. She stood in the center of the room, arms crossed, eyes scanning the shadows.
Then the man arrived, tense, fists clenched. Silence stretched between them until the door creaked again.
The bystander stepped in, looking unsure of himself. "I didn't think either of you would show."
The woman tilted her head. "Then why come?" "Because I got a message. Said there was something I needed to see." "We all did," the man muttered. "What is this?"
"Some sick joke?"
A projector clicked on. Images began to play on the wall. Not just the dashcam footage, but security feeds from other angles. Ones none of them had seen. The incident wasn't spontaneous. Someone had orchestrated it.
The footage zoomed in on a nondescript white van parked nearby. Inside, a person with a headset gave commands to someone via radio. "Wait," the woman breathed.
"Is that me? On another camera?"
"Before the fight?"
"This was staged," said the bystander, eyes wide. The man took a step forward. "Why us?" A voice echoed from the shadows, "Because you're believable. Because no one would suspect a thing."
From the far side of the warehouse, a figure stepped into the light, a fourth character, one none of them had met but who clearly knew everything.
"You were pawns in a media experiment," the stranger said. "Your reactions, your lies, your fears, they were all data."
"For who?" the woman asked.
"For the ones who need to control the narrative."
Suddenly, headlights pierced the warehouse windows. A van screeched to a halt outside. Armed figures disembarked.
The stranger turned to run. "Get out of here," he shouted.
The trio scattered, each grabbing different exits.
The man tripped but was pulled up by the woman. The bystander lost his phone in the scramble. As sirens wailed in the distance, all three disappeared into the night, now bound together by something they couldn't yet comprehend, but knew they had to expose. They would meet again. And when they did, the real story would begin to unravel.
By the time the sun had begun to dip beneath the horizon, casting a golden haze over the quiet stretch of highway, the storm that had begun with a honk had now swept through every corner of their lives.
But it wasn't over. The final revelations were waiting just around the bend. The air in the courtroom was thick. Not with heat, but with unease, the type of static tension that settles in just before a thunderstorm.
A single cough echoed through the room before silence once again pressed down on everyone present.
Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters scribbled furiously.
Faces turned to the defendant, tired eyes, clenched jaw. No longer the man seen in dashcam footage, shouting through a shattered window.
Now he was simply broken. The prosecutor laid out the final piece of evidence. An audio file.
The judge asked, "Is this recording from the night in question?"
"Yes, Your Honor." Verified and time-stamped.
As the file played, the courtroom was haunted by the rawness of it all, the screech of tires, frantic breathing, the panicked voice of the kidnapped passenger pleading for the driver to stop.
But then came something else. A second voice.
Calmer, more composed. And suddenly, the courtroom's collective breath caught.
That voice didn't belong to the man on trial. It was someone else. A detective leaned over to whisper into the lead investigator's ear.
Moments later, the judge ordered a recess. Murmurs erupted as the audio was played again. Now more eyes turned to the gallery, to a man who'd attended every hearing without fail.
A man who'd claimed to be a witness. A friend of the victim. A local off-duty officer who had been praised for staying calm at the scene. But his voice matched the second one on the recording.
2 hours later, he was in handcuffs.
The entire case unraveled in reverse.
Turns out, the original road rage incident had been staged.
The man on trial had been manipulated.
His rival had orchestrated everything, tampered with his car, baited him into reacting, made sure the passenger screamed at just the right moment.
But why? Jealousy. The off-duty officer had been passed up for promotion. Replaced on a task force by none other than the man he'd framed. When he couldn't handle the slight, he'd plotted revenge. What started as a scheme to disgrace a rival had turned into attempted murder. And nearly succeeded. The truth devastated the victim's family. They had mourned a version of the story that was never real. Now they sat, stunned, as the court reversed course. But the scars remained.
Outside the courthouse, flashing lights blurred the faces of those who emerged. A reporter asked, "Do you think justice was served today?"
The man who had once been a pariah paused before answering. Justice isn't always a straight road.
Sometimes it's full of sharp turns.
But today, at least, we made it past one more corner. As he walked away, the wind picked up.
And somewhere, far from the chaos, another car door slammed.
Another story began.
Because road rage isn't just about anger.
It's about control. About power.
About how quickly we can become monsters behind the wheel, or victims of someone else's game.
And in a world full of motion, where every mile hides a secret, it's the truth that hits the hardest when it finally catches up.